Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. He cranked it up to 10 and did a little jog across the yard. Gave himself one of those lift you up out of your shoes jolts and fell down back on the ground and said, I think I'm peeing myself.
Oh, man.
Oh, good times.
Did he wake up a couple hours later? What?
Yeah. That's right. He did in Myanmar.
Wow. It's like Lost.
Exactly.
There's a polar bear?
There's a polar bear playing poker. Totally.
Oh, awesome.
Totally. How you been?
Fantastic.
I caught a couple of movies this week that I've been meaning to catch up on.
Did you let him go?
Did. Can I tell you? You know, it's me catching up on films that I should have seen prior to now.
It wasn't the Fast and the Furious series again, was it?
No, I did not do the whole series again. I caught Les Miserables.
Oh,
believe it or not, I did not see that in the theaters. I did not see that in the theater, and so it took me about 6 sessions to get through it. But it was funny. It was like watching it serially. I watched it in half-hour increments.
Right.
And
right.
It was like watching a little miniseries.
Fantastic.
Perfect for YouTube. He totally should have done that movie on YouTube. I quite liked it, but the one I actually found myself more amused by, as you predicted, This Is the End.
Yes.
They're totally those are two movies in a little bit of a different class.
A little bit, although I loved Les Mis, the musical.
Mm-hmm.
I less loved the movie adaptation.
Really? So
I would much rather watch This Is the End again.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm falling on it. The problem, Inspector Javert.
Yeah,
he was.
It's a little painful to listen to. Brooding
kind of throat singing going on.
Something.
Very.
And there were other issues too. I don't know. I really didn't like the camera work in that one.
I'll tell you the thing that stands out for me, which is probably two things. First of all, I actually thought Hugh Jackman did a terrific job.
Yeah,
and I particularly loved Paris. I thought the actual set design was great. I really enjoyed kind of the experience of Paris.
In the springtime?
Paris in the springtime. And yes. Then I was even more delighted to watch This Is the End, which ironically is what I sort of imagined should have happened to Paris. You see anything else good this weekend?
It's been a really busy week. I've been watching a classic Japanese film, Harakiri. And
Hello Kitty.
Hello Kitty. Not Hello Kitty. Harakiri, which is like when a samurai kills themselves, they stick their blade in their
Harry Carey.
I'm still working my way through it, but it is really good. So it's been a long week. I really haven't had a lot of time to do much.
Let me guess how it ends.
Oh, you.
Okay, one more. Ender's Game.
I haven't seen it.
You should.
I'll get around to it.
I know, but you should see it. Don't see it in 3D because it's fake. It's fake 3D on Ender's Game.
So is Gravity, and that was great, but I still won't see Ender's Game in 3D.
I know, but here's the thing. Ender's Game, you owe it to yourself to see Ender's Game after that fantastic Harrison Ford interview in GQ that was posted on the Facebook page. Was Steve responsible for that?
I don't know.
But it was not me, and it wasn't you.
Me, so it had to be Steve.
So Steve tracked this down. The single best interview I have ever heard with Harrison Ford or any curmudgeonly 71-year-old actor.
And possibly shortest too.
Yes, that would have been. You wondered how long he actually had to do that interview. So you get 72 seconds with Mr. Ford, and it was terrible. The questions were terrible, and the answers were fantastic. Harrison Ford answered exactly as he should have, given the quality of the questions he was being given. And so you should check that out on Facebook.com/thenextreel.
Absolutely.
I just gave a pre-plug. Okay, so you were saying you had a rough week. You're watching this Japanese film, which is making you speak in Japanglish.
Yes. It's Japanglish.
Much to the chagrin of Japanese Americans.
I wish I had more to say, but I don't. I'm still working my way through it and enjoying it, though. Good. Enjoying the process.
Excellent.
That was a little pre-plug. Do you see what I did? A little pre-plug for our movie tonight.
That was good. I didn't see it. It was a little curveball.
Yeah, I like to throw those every now and then.
That was nice. This is the next reel, everybody. You should definitely, you should not turn off your internet machines right now if you're listening to the show. We're so glad that you came to hang out with us. And you can find us at thenextreel.com. That's where you can find all of our old shows. You can check out the Film Board, our monthly gathering to talk about new releases with fantastic contributors, regular monthly contributors. You can read the fantastic blog that is, we've got a blog runner. It's like a showrunner. I'm calling him the blog runner. Right. Maybe the blog whisperer. Steve Sarmento. You can read the blog stylings of Steve Sarmento over at the blog and on Facebook. Again, facebook.com/thenextreel. If you head over to the contact page, you can find all the different places to find us. The most important one, I think we decided the third most important one, now ranked second most important one because there's real prizes associated with it.
That's right.
The Instagram Guess the Movie Pony Prize. Andy, tell the people where we stand.
It's, we're plowing through this thing. We had, this week we did 1961's fantastic black and white ghost story, The Innocents, and The Lady's Revenge got it after about 4 images. So
4 images. Where does that stand? How does that rank in sort of average, What's the longest it's taken? There's some people just haven't gotten.
We've gone a full week before
okay.
of images, and I mean, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the '78 one, that was a really hard one for people. It wasn't until I threw up the image, the classic image of Donald Sutherland doing his little alien scream at the very end of the film, that people finally figured that one out. That was a tricky one, but. Yeah, The Lady's Revenge came through on The Innocents. I think I gave it away by showing an image with Deborah Kerr in it, but it's a film that she said she loves, so she caught on pretty quickly as soon as that image went out.
Fantastic. So we're working up toward our big 2018 award ceremony.
That's right. It'll be just like the end of Star Wars. That's what sort of award ceremony we're going to do for our Pony Prize.
but it's going to be the end of Star Wars Episode 7, so we don't really know what it's going to be like actually yet.
That's right. That's right.
Excellent. So, do you have a film in mind for this week that you're going to stump the people with? Starts tomorrow, right?
You bet. It is.
You're not going to actually say it.
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so very excited about that. Head over to Instagram.com/thenextreel. You can follow us there and make sure you jump in on the Instagram Next Reel Guess the Movie Pony Prize. And I notice you've squatted the hashtag Pony Prize.
I have.
Nobody was upset about that. Apparently, that was not one of the more competitive hashtags.
No, there are quite a few Guess the Movie hashtags out there.
But no Pony Prize.
But no Pony Prize. So I'd like to claim that as my own.
I think it's great. I'm proud of you. Good work, son.
Thank you.
Let's talk about trailers.
Yes, let's.
My trailer this week, I'm going to go first because my movie's already out. This sort of surprised me, mostly because of my woeful lack of planning. I came a little bit late to the show, and I hadn't picked a trailer yet. And so after much scrounging, stumbled upon this film, Mr. Nobody, written and directed by Jaco van Dormael, taking potentially great liberties with the pronunciation of Mr. Van Dormael's name. And this is a drama fantasy romance. It strikes me a little bit Benjamin Button. If Benjamin Button was taking place in with a hearty dash of string theory in it.
Yeah, it really has kind of that sliding doors.
Sliding doors, yeah.
I love it.
It really does. This looks fantastic. It stars Jared Leto and Sarah Polley, Diane Kruger. The film looks it's got a really interesting look to it. Lots of wonderful makeup and looks like CGI age work as Jared Leto jumps forward and backward through time in this trailer. It's definitely worth checking out. You can check it out on this week's post on the thenextreel.com, and you can go get the movie. It's just came out last week, or earlier this week, I think, or maybe it was Friday last week. Anyway, it came out in November on iTunes, and it hits theaters. When did you say it hits theaters?
It's already on, I think it's in theaters. I think it started playing limited November 1st. That's right. Started playing limited November 1st. So it's in theaters. You should check it out. Mr. Nobody with Jared Leto, Sarah Polley. It looks great. Yeah, it looks really clever. I like the way it looks like we're following him in at least 3 different versions of his life. So it's kind of exciting. Yeah, it looks really interesting. And I like that Jared Leto. You know, he's coming up in another one that you're excited about, right? The Dallas Buyers Club. Yes, he looks great in that, and I think there's already been quite a bit of buzz about both him and McConaughey getting some notice for their roles. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Awesome. What do you have this week? My trailer is a very interesting looking film that I hadn't heard of. It just kind of like you, this one popped in the periphery of a conversation, and I watched it. It's called The Philosophers. It's a really fascinating film about basically kind of a philosophy class where the teacher gives his students this assignment, putting them in a situation where they are the last survivor, or they're surviving this cataclysmic apocalyptic event, and they run into a shelter to survive. But there's 21 of them, and they can only keep 10 of them. And so it creates this situation where he passes a hat around. They each have a career, and then they have to decide who lives and who dies. And it turns into this philosophical challenge for them, and then also the teacher, as they say, well, why should we keep you in here? And very interesting. And then they start playing with different, they go through that scenario, then they go through another scenario, a couple different scenarios, as the students really kind of struggle and try to figure out, the best way for who's going to live and who's going to die. And I like that it's done in a way where you see them in class talking about this, but then it actually puts them in these situations. And so you see them outside of this bunker, and you see them killing people and trying to figure out who's going to live and die, who's going to get let into it and stuff. It looks really fascinating, and I am quite excited to see it. If it's as good as the trailer makes it look, this could be, a really great film for the year. I'm stymied by this film. It's one of those films that I think you're right. It has that same effect on me that Cloud Atlas did the first time I saw the trailer. It was like this. Yeah. It starts out and it's kind of, you're in this very real sort of universe, and then suddenly everything comes off the rails, and it's just it looks really beautiful, and yet everything hinges on how they transition between this fantasy universe and the classroom. Yeah, exactly. How do they get there? That's the thing that I'm going to be thinking about when I see this film. So I think it looks terrific. Yeah, and James Darcy, who was in Cloud Atlas, is the teacher in this. So. Yeah. And then Bonnie Wright, who is Ginny Weasley, is in it. So, yeah, there's something about this that really looks great. And I hope it lives up to the potential. Wow, I hadn't put that connection, the Ginny Weasley connection. Yeah. Together. That's interesting. This one opens December 11th. I'm guessing it's going to be a limited release, but it looks like a fascinating one to check out. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, good choice. That's right. Good choice. And now I think we should learn a little bit about the process.
Something big, huh? That's what they all think back home, something big.
Could be something big.
What is it?
Sworn to secrecy. Without the formula, the Japanese, or anyone else for that matter, would have nothing.
You're asking us to consider making a vast investment.
I want to know, what do we own?
Obviously, we don't want to get too specific for security reasons.
Mr. Ross, take a picture, sir?
Sure.
I'll give you $1,000 for that camera.
Ever get the urge to do something adventurous, in spite of the ancient wisdom against inter-office romances?
I think you're a lovely young woman.
Can you see without those things?
Sure.
Why don't you take them off?
The fella said we must never forget that we are human. And as humans, we must dream. And when we dream of money.
Everybody on vacation's got a story.
What do you do?
I'm with the FBI.
We have no idea who anyone is. Like they say at the airport, did anyone give you a package?
You mistrust everybody?
Just strangers.
You now have a Swiss bank account, code word Patty.
Why?
Mr. Ross, you're in a lot of trouble.
I've done nothing wrong.
Now, Mr. Ross, if I told you this story, would you believe it?
It is the oldest confidence game on the books. The Spanish prisoner. The man who supplies the money gets the fortune and the girl.
I believe we have a problem.
People aren't that complicated, Joe. Good people, bad people. They generally look like what they are.
Why are so many people having such difficulty?
That's the question baffles me.
This is the first film written and directed by our friend, a friend of the show, David Mamet.
That's right.
That would have been awesome if we could have gotten through that without breaking. Friend of the show, Steve Martin, Campbell Scott, friends of the show. And this is a small series we're doing. We're just doing 2 films of David Mamet. We're as we've said before, we're excited about this one. These are the films that are written and directed by David Mamet.
He's two of the
films written and directed by David Mamet. But that's our deciding factor on whether or not they made it into this series. And I think, when we look at in the sort of canon of great American writers, David Mamet, you would have to, particularly writers of the stage, you would have to say David Mamet he's pretty high up there. Would you agree?
I directed a David Mamet play.
Yeah? How'd that go for you?
It was with high school students. And let me just tell you.
Was it Sexual Perversity in Chicago?
No, it actually was Revenge of the Space Pandas or Binky Rudich and the Two-Speed Clock. Which is
one of his more cerebral works.
It's really wacky, but I will say it still is written in Mamet speak, which is not easy for high school students to grasp. And so I wouldn't say that it went well.
Oh, Andy,
yes.
That's good. I managed to direct a Mamet myself. The Duck Variations. Have you read this one?
I have not.
It's another one to check out. Big fan of Mamet. I like the Mamet. I like what he does. I put Mamet up there with in terms of it. Whatever you think of style, of voice. I admire people in the caliber of David Mamet and Aaron Sorkin and Patty Chayefsky. They're all up there for me in that same category as people who wield words with great precision. Mm-hmm. And I think, I feel like I want to open with that comment on this film in particular, because so much about the language and the reading of the language in this film is a layer on which we have to adjust ourselves to the con itself.
Okay.
That's my pitch.
That's your pitch, huh?
Now, you hadn't seen this movie in some 20 years, right?
I hadn't seen this 15
years, right? Is that about right?
Since it came out in '98.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a little while. I remember watching this film and really being impressed with the twists and turns of the story. I really kind of enjoyed the way that he laid it out, and I enjoyed all the surprises as they happened. Watching it again, even though it's like 16, 17 years later, however many years it is, I can't do math right now, I found it a lot more obvious. And I don't know if I would say I found the twists and turns themselves obvious, but I actually found his writing more obvious in this, and it bothered me. Now, I will say, the vast majority of it, I think you're right. His writing has the precision and everything else that you were talking about that works really well, and I like it in context of the story. I think what bothers me, and we can just get this out of the way now, just so it's out there. I felt like when he wrote this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like when he wrote this, he really felt like he had to nail the points in on a few key issues over and over and over again, to the point where watching it a second time, I felt like it's like, hello, could you have made that any more obvious for me? The first being when we meet Rebecca Pidgeon's character on the plane, or maybe not when we meet her. I think it's when they're coming back, her character Susan, and she's talking on and on and on about how you can't tell who anyone is. You can't tell who anyone is. I don't know how many times she says that, but I feel like she's talking about that, saying that line for like 5 minutes, getting the point across. Yes, I understand we can't trust anybody, and leading me to believe you're probably not someone we can trust either. It was like so blatant the way that he was doing that. And likewise, toward the end of the film, when he's hitting it over the head, do you have your ticket? Oh, do you have your ticket? Don't forget your ticket. It's like, yes, I get it. There's something about his ticket that is awry, and I have a feeling that, we're going to find out here in a minute. It drove me nuts when he was doing those things with the writing, and I didn't understand why he made those things stand out so much.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I have the same sensation. That sensation of, the first time you watch this film, it is much more fun than any subsequent time you watch this. Any subsequent time, it's like it doesn't age really as well if you already know. You want to say if you already know the trick, but the trick is sort of multivariate. I think this is one of those films. As a con film, it's frustrating because it's full of this sort of Hitchcockian MacGuffin stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everywhere you turn, there's something you're shown, but you really don't need to care about.
Right.
It seems like every scene there's something else not to care about. There's the process, we don't need to care about that. It turns out
Mm-hmm.
there's his little journal. Well, we don't really need to care about that. There's the book. You sort of need to care about that, but then you need to stop caring about that.
And the videotapes.
There's the videotapes. You totally don't. It turns out don't care about that.
Yeah, it turns out you think you do, but
you think you do, but you don't. And then there's the title of the film. Which turns out really don't need to care about at all, because they never actually do the Spanish prisoner con. The title of the film itself is a con. So, which is ironic. I didn't even know there was a title for the con that was in the film. Do you know what the title is of the con?
I just missed what you... No.
There's a con in the film, right? The con in the film is a very common con. It's the hey, I'm a Nigerian prince con. Would you please email me your PayPal address?
Well,
right, that's
which is
the con.
Yeah,
and it's called the Murphy.
Did they say that in the film?
No, they didn't. But that's what the con is actually called in real life, right?
Gotcha.
Con is called the Murphy, and not the Spanish prisoner, which is never done in the film. Which is another example of just, I think, the layers that Mamet sort of piles on to this film. And so it gives a lot of weight to a lot of very small elements that I think convolute the overall sort of fluidity of the film itself and get in the way of, I think, the overall story. And you really don't ever get ahead, where I think... the great con films, The Sting, you get these fantastic con films that give you the audience a little bit more awareness than your protagonist has, right? So just enough ahead of wherever he is that you feel like you're a little bit in control and out of control, because you have that feeling of urgency. Right, please find out that the ticket is actually to Venezuela. Please find it. Right. You don't really get that. You only get a little taste of that right at the end as he's going through the metal detector and turns around, and we see, which I think is a great example of what you're talking about, that the hammering over the head bit, when you see the X-ray go through of the red camera case and it's actually a gun.
Yeah.
That nobody raises any alarms about, ironically enough. But we had already seen that visual trick done in the very opening of the scene of the film, and so this was the gun on the mantelpiece. Like that was just a visual cue that he just needed to hammer home. So I had real problems with that on this viewing, with that sort of element. Like you say, it's the hammering over the head thing, and yet characters like Ricky Jay. Which is, one reviewer or one critic had said it's like a three-piece suit-clad Confucius who drifts in and out of the film, dropping his little bits of wisdom and witticisms. I find Ricky Jay just fantastic in this. I just love it when he comes out. He like saves every scene for me in this film.
And see, he felt like he was there just to deliver the one-liners to me.
Exactly.
I mean, which didn't work for me because it always took me out of the film. Because then I had to go, okay, well, why is he saying that, though? And who would actually walk around saying things like that? I mean, I love them. Don't get me wrong. I love those one-liners.
I don't think you do. I don't think you do. And I think that's just mean. I'm calling him.
I love them out of context of the film. In context, I'm like, nobody says things like that. And why is... Joe, Campbell Scott's character, why is he just standing there acknowledging it? Because it's like, what does that even mean? I don't know. But I really do love Ricky Jay.
See, the thing is, Ricky Jay plays his character as his attorney for the company. Don't worry, you don't need to care about the company. His character, George Lang, he says my single favorite number one line of any film ever.
It's on our website, yeah.
It's on our website, and it's in this one. Worry is like interest paid in advance on a debt that never comes due. Great line. But, man, he has so many other great ones, and they're in really weird times. Like they're out on the dock, and he's wearing a suit on the dock, and everybody's talking, and he says, we must never forget that we are human, and as humans we dream. And when we dream... we dream of money. And it's like so painfully slow. So painfully slow that it's, you think like the other, you think like Steve Martin or Campbell Scott or somebody's going to jump in and interrupt him and say, okay, old man, go get a drink, Nobody going on a business trip would have been missed if he never arrived, right? I mean, they're great. They're just fantastic. And they're great examples, I think, of his writing. But
well, here's what I love about it.
All right, tell me what
I love the way that it's that Mamet speak, the way that people say things wrong. And you get in virtually the vast majority of scripts that are written, yes, screenwriters to varying degrees of quality are able to write in different characters. So one character sounds like that character and a different character sounds like a different character, as opposed to the characters sounding like the writers. Now, maybe you could argue that Mamet's characters all kind of sound like Mamet because they all kind of have this Mamet speak. But what I do like about the way he writes is he actually writes these characters where they don't speak perfectly. And a lot of other screenwriters, because you are basically playing God, you can write exactly the thing you'd want to say and the great one-liner, the great quip to get back at somebody or whatever. He has people stumbling and pausing and repeating themselves and saying clever quips, but they actually have the words wrong. And it feels a lot more like natural dialogue, the way people speak. And people are always interrupting each other and they not finishing their thoughts. That's the stuff that Mamet writes that I really enjoy. And I think Glenn Ross is probably my favorite example of that, even though he didn't direct that one. I love the way that he wrote those characters, and I just felt like that's like the peak of it. I think it's working for the most part, but I feel like sometimes some of these actors don't quite hit it out of the park like like other actors have in other projects. And but I still enjoy that aspect of the writing. I think that all the clever quips and stuff I enjoy. I just feel like those are great outside of context of the film itself.
You know, I want to talk about the acting and sort of as a function of the direction of the film, because this is an area where I'm torn. I'm with you. I feel like the writing is, when I sit down and read the script, I'm vastly more interested than when most of the actors in the film are speaking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Campbell Scott does a terrific job with Mamet speak.
Yeah.
I think I was pleasantly surprised that Steve Martin, I thought, did a fantastic job with Mamet speak. Like I didn't get any sort of awkwardness.
And his doesn't. I don't think his character has quite as much Mamet speak as the others.
Yeah.
But he does it all very well, and actually, he comes across really natural in a role that it was one of his earlier, more serious roles. But
right.
I felt like he played the part really, really well.
No, I do too. I mean, there was that sort of sophistication that he brought to the role that I think was interesting to watch, and I think there was Mamet speaking there, but I think it really is a testament to his ability to deliver it naturally, and the character I think that worked for me. So the exchanges between Steve Martin and Campbell Scott for me were pretty good. Everybody else, with the exception of Ricky Jay, who played Ricky Jay in this film, I think everybody else to me really struggled on that spectrum of Mamet speak and came off as extremely stilted. It was like, it was much more of had much more of a vibe of a stage play.
Yeah,
and not a great one. And I wonder, this is the thing I've been thinking about. Is this a conscious choice of direction? Because I've seen Rebecca Pidgeon in other stuff, and she's not like this.
Well, I hate her in everything, so.
But not like this.
No, I pretty much do hate her like this and everything. She's a bad one to bring up, but yes, she generally. I should say I think I've only seen her in David Mamet films, so I don't know if it's fair to say that. I don't like how she is in David Mamet films. I always struggle with her.
Well, and that's my thing. And so there's this layer of sort of perception of how these characters are delivering their Mamet speak and this story, and it feels to me like it is like a veneer on top of the subtext of the film. Like the actors are sort of above the film, you imagine like it may have been easier to deliver this film had they been wearing sort of the Greek theatrical masks. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, right.
Like, that's what it felt like to me, and I wonder if that's by conscious choice. I found nothing to indicate that was true, but a lot of people who were kind of thinking that maybe this was sort of a dramatic metaphor to the con.
That's possible. It's an interesting way to look at it. If that's what he was really trying to do, I don't know if it was effective enough, because I don't think it was done so deliberately that it made me instantly go to that and go, oh, I see what he's trying to do. Like, I think you'd really have to dig to find that answer in order to latch onto that. And then putting it in that context, I can say, okay, yeah, I can see him doing that. But I don't know. I guess it's not just...
What's funny about that, and the thing that turns it for me, is that if you believe that, then by the same logic, Campbell Scott and Steve Martin failed. Because they weren't stilted enough.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
They were much more on the ball. It's a tricky one. And I think that some of that also comes from just logic problems within the story. Talking about like when you watch it a second time, things don't necessarily make as much sense. And like I still don't quite understand why the U.S. Marshals were busting Steve Martin at the end. I mean, it sounds to me like they were busting him because they have been following the whole time, set up by Joe's boss, Mr. Klein, right?
Played by the wonderful Ben Gazzara.
Right, but I'm not sure why the U.S. Marshals would be involved in doing that if it was just to make sure that Mr. Klein. I don't know. I guess I just didn't understand like how he got them tied into this. Why are they doing this corporate bust? I don't know. Maybe it makes sense.
Well, right, and that's the that's the peril of the big reveal on the boat, right?
Yeah.
That we get this, that we like we already said, there's very little that we, the audience, are aware of before our protagonist is aware of it, until the very end when they're doing the I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you lousy kids.
Right, exactly.
And so we have the FBI or the U.S. Marshal saying that Mr. Klein was behind the entire con.
Right.
Because he wanted to keep all the profits for himself.
Yeah. So, which makes it sound like
Wikipedia summary.
Yeah. Which makes it sound like he's trying to cut his other partners out by doing this. I don't know. Maybe Wikipedia is stating that incorrectly.
Well, that's what I don't understand that either, because that's what it seems like. It was either that Mr. Klein was trying to smoke out the was trying to smoke out the con, knowing that Jimmy was out there, or that he was just trying to But did he? Does he get? We don't ever get to see Mr. Klein carted off to jail.
The last time we see Mr. Klein is when he's meeting Joe in the prison, trying to say, you know what, I want to drop all the charges. I want to work this out. Now, what if Joe said, okay, let's drop the charges, let's work this out? Like, I just feel like I don't quite understand.
Yeah.
Like, where would Mr. Klein have gone from there? No, I'm sorry. I was just saying that. You really have to stay here. I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
And then wouldn't he then also be responsible for Ricky Jay's character's death? I mean, I don't think it was Mr. Klein that killed him. I think it was like Jimmy or his people, Jimmy or Susan or one of them. But it feels like if you're, putting this bust out on somebody who's not necessarily trying to steal your money, but is doing it only because you are tricking him into trying to steal your money, then he would be responsible. I don't know.
Or maybe it was simply when I first saw this, I walked and my memory of the film was that Mr. Klein was behind it in that he did not trust Joe with the big secret. And he again, hammering it over our heads, he says time and time again, they have these talks about security. Are you concerned about security? No, Joe, I'm sure it's fine. Well, it's in my safe. Well, is it really in your safe? I got to do this on the security. And security, right? And so in the end, when I walked away from the film the first time I saw it, my memory of it was that Mr. Klein was simply not trusting the fact that this incredible secret process, which would change the tide of the company, was in the hands of this guy who wrote it in a journal.
Right.
And I think he was that he may have simply been. This may have been his way to sort of surreptitiously keep an eye on what was going on. But even if it doesn't make any sense either, because why would they go to all the trouble to swap the?
Which I rewatched that scene and Ed Neal, who plays that character, he's got to have really smooth hands.
You didn't find it either. Did you find it? I didn't see it.
It doesn't happen. You never see him actually do the magic switch. I mean, if he does, it's when we're looking somewhere else, and he does it so smoothly. I don't know. Ed O'Neill is just a master FBI magician, I guess. And it's kind of fun to see a younger Clark Gregg in the back as the sniper.
Yes,
which I had to watch that scene going, where is Clark Gregg? Where is he? And then I finally, that's him in the back. I hardly recognized him.
This is one of those Mamet things where, there are directors who rely on misdirection through shot selection. And there are directors who get away with a lot through misdirection, through shot selection. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like in this case, I think there may be just a little bit too much weight on, not even letting us rebuild the breadcrumb trail.
Well, yeah, you go back and you watch, like, when they pull out is this your signature? And it's like the certificate to get Venezuelan citizenship because there's no extradition treaty. If you go back and watch when he signs that, it actually says it says club membership decree across the top. It doesn't even say anything about Venezuela. So it's like, well, this is completely an artifice.
Right. Well, and then, the ticket that he has in his hand that we've seen the close-up of in the past is the ticket that goes back to Saint Steph, and the ticket clearly that she goes back to the car to get ends up not being that ticket. Like, it's those sorts of things that you can't, when you can't go back and rebuild, I think it loses credibility on reviewing. So
it's not The Sixth Sense where when you rewatch it, it makes it even more. Yeah, it makes it more compelling and it makes it more exciting because it's woven together so well. It works well on a first viewing, but afterward it all kind of crumbles, and it makes me wonder if he intentionally is doing that, because he clearly is a writer who loves going back and doing these sorts of con stories. I mean, I think it's his third con film that he wrote. I mean, he did, what were the other ones? House of Games was one, right?
Which I quite liked.
I don't think I've seen that one. And then he did Heist. And then, he also wrote or was one of the ghostwriter on Ronin, which we've talked about here on the show.
Right.
So he clearly loves this whole idea of cons and people pulling the wool over somebody's eyes and trying to make off with something. And I think he does it effectively. Like I said, I haven't seen House of Games. I have seen Heist, although it wasn't since it came out, so I can't remember the con in that film. But I feel like this is kind of a weak con. I feel like it works well on a first viewing, but when you actually deconstruct it, it falls apart. So it makes me wonder, for somebody who really likes cons and likes to write cons, is he purposefully doing that? Is there some reason that he would kind of be creating kind of a con that crumbles upon going back and looking at it? Like you said, the title itself is a con. We're not looking at the Spanish prisoner con. We're looking at the Murphy. So I'm curious about that.
Exactly. And that, I think, feeds back into my issue about the performances themselves. Like every single element, the structure of the con, the name of the con, the performances of the actors, the kind of mammoth-ness, the hyper mammoth-ness of the script. I mean, this script does not sound like Heist. This script does not sound like Red Belt. This film has a unique tone, and I wonder, as I keep looking at this film, and really, I mean, I think I'm strangely drawn to this film. I can't. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, I feel like I'm sober, I'm clear-headed, and we're talking about things that don't work in this film, and yet I like it. I like it, and that's I recognize that's my problem. But I wonder how many of these things were choices that just don't stack up. Maybe it's that they just don't stack up with one another. Maybe it's just a bridge too far.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's an interesting film because there's so much falsities all through it. The nature of con is creating falsehoods and that you buy as truth, and basically everything is always presented as a truth in a con.
Right.
And as things change and shift toward the end, those are the twists. You learn, oh, this thing that I thought was true is false. This thing is actually still true. Oh, no, it's not. This is actually false. Oh, this thing that I thought was false is actually, it's a double false. It kind of keeps shifting around and you never quite know. And it does create this kind of fantasy world, and it is interesting to buy into it. I mean, I still did find it a compelling watch. I did enjoy the story. I enjoyed seeing how it all played out again. I completely forgot the whole Japanese tourist thing, and so that was kind of a funny twist at the end, because I wrote down as I was writing, like, what is up with all the Japanese tourists everywhere? Why? Like, what kind of gun on the mantelpiece is this? Where is he going? Is he trying to make a statement or something? And that whole little last line about that, I mean, it was kind of funny. Nobody looks at Japanese tourists. The whole thing.
Probably because they were from Omaha.
Yeah, there you go. And they were watching Harakiri.
Harakiri. I don't know. Some other things I like about it. I like what he's trying to say with this film, right? That the whole idea of the whole construct of trust in this film. Insofar as Rebecca Pidgeon's role was to never let us forget that this is a movie about trust, I really do like the overall message, and I like the fact that it was as heavy-handed as it was. Right, this was the if you can't hide it, hang a flag on it theory of dramatic conspiracy. We're gonna, we really want you to know that we don't trust big business. And we don't trust what they do, so we're going to veil everything that when we're talking about, we're going to encode all of our discussions about big business and about the cultural state of business in the United States or global business. We're going to encode that in very vague nouns. And that's going to be that becomes a statement in itself. And I love sort of that it makes the script something of a Mad Libs. That you can just kind of insert whatever you want. I mean, you could just find and replace process for just about any major product, and it still works. And so I like things like that. I mean, I found myself in terms of this being an activist film, I found myself sort of compelled by that angle.
It is interesting. It's interesting, and at the same time, it also is. It's stepping away from making a decision and being really determined about making a statement. But by doing that, it is an interesting way to make a statement,
Yeah.
Because he could very blatantly be, the process could be some Wall Street secret that's going to, do something for a stock or something like that. It could be just a banking process that moves money through so fast that your interest rates move faster than others. I mean, these are all complete nonsense, but that's the sort of thing that the process could theoretically be, right? And if he labeled it as something, yes, he could have been making a very blatant statement about something in society. But by not labeling it, he does allow you to kind of pick and choose whatever you think it's supposed to be. And there is something to that is compelling.
I like it in that very regard. It lets you paint this film with whatever advocacy you hang your own hat on, and I like that.
It certainly has a lot of formulas that go along with it. I mean, an entire journal full of formulas. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in this process, and I like how they play this whole idea of the process where you never know what it is. You can't tell from the journal what it is. And even when he estimates how much money they're going to make off this thing, he never shows you the figure.
Right.
It's all like the way that they choose to frame shots throughout this. It's always very secretive. It's always very, you don't need to know that. We're going to hide this. Like even that certificate for the club, that's the club membership decree that's supposed to be Venezuela. Even that is framed in a way where, I mean, I had to really go frame by frame to try to pick a letter here and there so I could figure out what it was, because they obscure it in such a way, and they really played with that. Even his sister, Steve Martin, Jimmy's sister, was always done in a way where every time he'd pull up a picture frame and you'd look at it, you'd get these insert shots of the frame, but then they'd move it in such a way where all of a sudden a light hits the glass and you can't see it. It's like, well, that was a weird insert, because it's done in such a way where you don't get to know who the sister is, and you find out why. For us, the viewer, you find out why it doesn't matter. Obviously, Joe can see who it is in the context of the film, But it's interesting how Joe is allowed to see those things, but we as the audience are not, letting us know, yes, it doesn't matter. This is all part of the heist.
There is there are these other great elements, particularly around the company, the things that we're meant to see versus the things we're meant to ignore. When he is about to take a call, he walks out, he's frustrated by the meeting that he's had with Ben Gazzara, and he feels accosted by the attorneys, and he walks out into the hallway and he tells the assistant, can you get me, Jimmy Dell's number? Do you have a number? Call him, connect him. And then he steps over into a sitting area. And do you remember what the poster is on the wall behind him?
Yeah, it is somebody talked.
Yeah, someone talked. Bright white on a dark background. And I, for the life of me, can't quite figure out what the image is. It looks like...
It's a finger. It looks like pointing. Somebody...
It's a finger. I thought it almost looks like a hand coming out of a grave. Like it looks like something is like buried.
It looks pretty frightening. Yeah, it's this big hand.
It's terrifying.
Pointing. Yeah,
it's just terrifying. And so that I think is the film is when they start peppering in some of those hammering you over the head visuals now on top of the script, on top of it's just another layer of these elements to remind you that you don't own your thinking right now.
Right. Yeah, it is an interesting game that he's playing here, and it has a lot of problems, but at the same time, there is something entertaining about it.
Yeah.
And
maybe it's that this film is there is I think a real highlight in Mamet's career that there isn't a single obscenity in it.
Yeah, that's
this
true.
dude is foul-mouthed.
Right.
In his other work for stage and screen, and this is his B rating with no obscenities.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. A lot of the critics seem to like this film. It's sort of middling on the kind of Metacritic scale, 7 or 70 or something like that. Ebert gives it a 3.5 out of 4. Guy seems to like it.
Yeah, it's a film that I think people liked. I'd be curious if these critics went back and rewatched it.
Yeah.
if those numbers would slide down a little bit.
Easy to do that on when you're writing a review in April of 1998.
Right, and you've just seen it, and this mystery seems really fresh, and you're like, oh, I like the way that they played me for a sucker this whole time, and every twist and turn, I always was wrong. It's very clever. It's just when you deconstruct it, all of a sudden it's not holding up. And I think there is still something interesting in it. The Mametness of it I enjoy, but I would say that it's probably taken a step down on my overall rankings.
It has for me too. I think that's fair to say. I enjoyed it. It seems like the public was not as enthusiastic about it as maybe the critics were. It did not do screamingly well at the box office.
It didn't do it didn't do well at all. I mean, it did make money. It just didn't really make a lot. What I saw is that it cost $10 million to make. And it made $10,162,034. So it just broke even. It just barely scraped by. It's right now. When we talked about Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist not too long ago, that was our lowest profitable film on our list. That has now been supplanted by The Spanish Prisoner, which now has actually made less money but still profited on our list. So there you go.
I love that that's become a ranking.
That's right.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well,
and I don't think this one is one that has really benefited from any sort of cult following in the years.
No, I think we're dusting this one off. It feels a little bit like we're dusting this off out of charity right now. But it's a good film. I still like it. I am compelled to watch it. I'm not gonna give up on you, Spanish Prisoner. But I have less. My sort of state dependent memory is clear. I have less justification of why after watching it and talking about it.
Yeah.
So anyhow, let's rank this thing.
Yes, let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and you can see all of our rankings. Was it just last week that we had our first ranking that debuted outside of the top 100?
I feel like there may have been another one, but it was the first one that that stuck in my head that definitely came. Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah, The Spanish Prisoner may not fare too well. We shall see. Are you ready?
I am ready.
The Spanish Prisoner or The Bourne Identity?
Bourne Identity.
Yes, sir. The Spanish Prisoner or Big Fish?
Big Fish. Oh, please.
No, I would pick Big Fish.
There you go.
The Spanish Prisoner or The Wolverine?
Oh, this is so much harder for you.
This is full of Japanese who are not tourists.
Go ahead.
I would pick The Wolverine. I know.
Wow.
Bullet Train, I guess, maybe.
Bullet Train. Okay. I would also pick The Wolverine.
All right. The Spanish Prisoner or The Fifth Element? Oh, man. I would do The Fifth Element because it is eye candy. There is an amazing... The Spanish Prisoner, aside from the way that he did framing with his shots, I was really unimpressed with the overall cinematography. It was very kind of bland to me. It didn't stand out. And Carter Burwell's music, it felt just very Carter Burwell-esque without giving me a whole lot more. So The Fifth Element at least is total eye candy.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Wow.
That's fast.
I know. The Spanish Prisoner or Now You See Me?
The Spanish Prisoner.
Oh, that's a tough one. I really didn't like Now You See Me. I would have to go The Spanish Prisoner over Now You See Me.
Yeah.
Absolutely would. The Spanish Prisoner or Strange Days?
The Spanish Prisoner.
If, again, and this is what I will say every time I have to rank against Strange Days, if I could rank just against the trailer of Strange Days, the initial teaser trailer, or just the opening sequence,
but
I would almost always pick Strange Days. But because I have to include the rest of the film, The Spanish Prisoner is what wins out here. The Spanish Prisoner or The Blob?
The Spanish Prisoner.
The
Spanish Prisoner.
I kind of like The Blob. I feel like I would rather sit down and watch The Blob.
I would say that, but that would last exactly 10 minutes. And then I'd get bored because I've totally been there, and I'd go back to The Spanish Prisoner because of Ricky Jay. And the Mamet wit.
All right.
Rapier wit.
Yes. Wow. All right. 112 out of 118. Oh, Mamet.
I feel a little dirty about that.
You just have to remember, we have a lot of films on here that we really like.
I know and easily 100 that we feel quite strongly about.
Yes.
So we're leaving leaving this one. We're moving on next week to another Mamet film, Red Belt. You have not seen this. Is that true? Have you seen it already?
I have not seen it. It just arrived, and I'm quite excited to check it out. It's got Chewie.
It's got Chiwetel Ejiofor, and let's see, when this came out in 2008, and so we have to say, I mean, there's a good 10 years of Mamet experience in this film. This has I think a great cast. Chewie, Tim Allen, Joe Mantegna, Ricky Jay is back, Emily Mortimer, Alice Braga, Rebecca Pidgeon, again. I think I don't want to upload it too much. I'll just say I was pleasantly surprised by how I felt about this film.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
It's not at all the film that I thought I was going to be. So,
well, I will take that for what it's worth.
Stuff that down your Mamet.
Is that a place? Is that a thing? Where is one's Mamet?
Hey, speaking of getting things stuffed in your Mamet, boy, did we make some friends in our conversation about Say Anything.
Oh, boy, we sure did.
I think the best one was, best comment on Facebook was our actual dear, possibly former friend of the show, friend Monica, whose comment was, I'm going to watch this film and then we're going to fight. That was great. There are a lot of people that feel very strongly, but you know what? I feel like, and this is why I'm bringing this up, even though we were vilified for our opinions on this particular film, with the exception of, again, friend of the show, John Foster, who also seems to hate everything. I feel about Spanish Prisoner as I think many feel about Say Anything. Like, in spite of its weirdness and kind of faults, there is an unnatural connection to that film that is highly based on context and age and hormones. And I get that.
Yes. And I would totally pick Say Anything over Spanish Prisoner.
I would also pick Say Anything.
Obviously, it's above it on a flick chart.
Yeah,
see?
yeah. Flick chart works.
Flick chart does work.
Flick chart pays off. All right. So Red Belt next week. You doing anything good? Anything else good? We do have but before Red Belt, you will hear a great big special, very special episode of VSE. Got another VSE coming up. This weekend we're gonna be the film board convenes to take on Thor. The Dark World.
Who will come out the victor? The film board or Thor?
What's your bet? You haven't seen it yet. When are you going to see it?
I'm going to try to see it tomorrow night.
I'm going tomorrow at 11:30 or something.
Yeah.
And so I'll be sure to call you right after I see it and tell you what happens.
And tell me all about it.
Yeah.
And then this happened, and then this, and then this
and
one
then
guy did this, and then that, and science.
So
you're gonna have to repost. You're gonna have to repost that. On
I know it was too
Facebook
good.
Page.
It was too good. So this is gonna be good. Thor: The Dark World. I'm interested in this. Alan Taylor, big fan of Alan Taylor. Done some good work in.
I'm curious to see what he can pull off.
Yeah. Done some great work, so very interested in this, very curious about it. So that we'll be recording that on Sunday evening once everybody has a chance to see it. So look for that on Monday. We'll have that up in the feed, and then we'll be back next week with Red Belt. Thanks, everybody. Andy, you have anything else?
Nope.
I gotta go to bed.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor.
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.